The story opens with a heavy view of a sunset that looks more like an open wound over the horizon. Inside, a man with a face like a skull stares at a small, worn photo, searching for a past that's slipping away. The air in this wasteland is biting, turning colder than it has any right to be. That's when a voice cuts through the silence, mocking him for looking as sour as the lemon. A black cat with glowing eyes creeps across the floor, making itself at home in the dark. The man claims he's just enjoying the view, but the cat knows a lie when it hears one. He identifies his visitor as Thelonious, a shadow cat who prides himself on being completely silent. Outside the fortress known as Castle Norturna, the local alligators are starting to get twitchy. Thelonious feels a change in the atmosphere, sensing that something is coming through the air. Right on cue, a white bird descends toward the high, circular windows of the castle. A carrier pigeon lands right in the man's hand, and the cat immediately wants to know if it's on the menu. The man tells the cat to cool it, noting that the bird's job is done once the message is read. The cat still thinks it's a waste of a perfectly good snack, but his master isn't in a joking mood. It turns out the message is from the mayor, and apparently this bear has the power to summon people with a sight if he really wanted to. The poor bird collapses on the floor, literally flown to death just to deliver a few words. The man kneels down, feeling a strange weight of guilt for a creature that died just to reach him. He reaches out a gloved hand, but he isn't just checking for a pulse. A surge of dark pink energy erupts from his palm, consuming the tiny body of the pigeon. The cat watches as a shadowy, spectral version of the bird begins to rise from the remains. Thelonious tells him he should probably stop doing that, as if bringing things back is a bad habit. But the man insists this is what the bird wanted, a second chance to keep flying. He announces he's heading for a place called Shambhala and warns the cat not to burn the palace down while he's gone. The cat is confused because his boss isn't using his usual shadow-traveling powers to get there. Instead, he chooses to walk across the dead side, a realm where the sky stays a constant, bruising shade of purple. Journey takes him through the twisted forest, where the trees look like they're reaching out to grab travelers. He treks across the blood desert, a place littered with the bleached skulls of those who didn't make the trip. He pushes through the endless fog, a mist so thick it feels like it's trying to swallow his identity. Finally, the horizon opens up to reveal Shambhala, better known as the Dead City. Inside a small room, a chimpanzee wearing a tuxedo and a top hat is admiring himself in a mirror. He thinks he looks pretty sharp, especially with the way he's adjusted his bow tie. Suddenly, a dark portal opens behind him, and the chimp nearly jumps out of his fur in fright. He demands to know why the visitor has to be so creepy all the time. The man tells the mayor that the bird he sent is dead, which is a pretty grim way to start a meeting. The chimp shrugs it off, claiming the bird was old, and he's definitely not paying any extra for the loss. The man ignores the petty talk and asks the mayor if he actually has the item he was promised. The mayor complains that elitist life is stressful and that he deserves a bit more small talk, but the skull-faced man just stands there, his patience thinner than the air in the dead side. The chimp gives in and pulls back a white sheet to reveal a large rectangular case. He opens it to show off a gleaming gold saxophone, claiming he even had a guy in town tune it up. The mayor is genuinely curious about why the all-powerful master of shadows is so obsessed with a musical instrument. The man corrects him, stating he isn't all-powerful and this sax is his own personal business. He absorbs the instrument into his own shadowy form, vanishing it into his cloak. Before he leaves, the mayor warns him that the local ghosts, the dead folk, are getting scared of something. He points out the window toward the glass city, mentioning rumors that a group called the Pantheon is coming to clean up the dead. The man stares out the distant lights, admitting he remembers very little about the New Orleans he left behind. However, he knows everything there is to know about the endless shadow and the horrors that live within it. Deep in the Umbra, a massive shadow serpent coils, reminding everyone that they have much bigger things to fear than the living. Suddenly, the sound of music begins to drift through the air, catching the man off guard. The mayor explains that some dead musicians formed a band, and honestly, they're actually pretty good. But when the chimp turns around, the man is already gone, leaving the mayor feeling a bit unappreciated for his help. In a courtyard, a group of spirits is gathered to play jazz. The music a haunting echo of the world above. The Master of Shadows appears behind them, his dark presence casting a literal chill over the performance. He listens intently to the brass instruments, questioning if what he's hearing is truly jazz. The music seems to touch something deep inside his hollow chest, though he won't admit it. For a brief second, the terrifying mask almost seems to soften into a memory of a smile. The music is interrupted by a series of strange, glitchy question marks appearing in the air around the dead folk. The man realizes he is being summoned, a process that feels like a physical pull on his soul. He looks toward a beam of light shooting into the sky, realizing this summons is different from the usual ones. The call is originating from New Orleans, a place he isn't technically supposed to enter anymore. He stands before a massive glowing dome of energy, wondering why anyone on the other side would possibly need him. This barrier is the glass curtain, a magical wall designed to keep the living and dead strictly separated. It's touted as the most powerful magical barrier ever built, meant to lock out everything dark. Specifically, it was built to keep out powerful monsters and entities that could threaten the peace of the city. The man knows it was built to keep out monsters exactly like him, but he's never been one for rules. He draws his side, noting that his weapon doesn't just cut flesh, it severs the very fabric of magic. With one powerful swing, he slices through the unbreakable barrier as if it were nothing but a curtain. He steps onto a street in New Orleans, momentarily stunned by how beautiful the city still looks after all this time. But he can't get distracted. The city's infrastructure is literally woven with protective spells to find him. Powers are restricted here, forcing him to move carefully through the corners of the world. He can only travel through the deepest, darkest shadows to avoid being detected by the city's magical sensors. The bright headlights of a passing car are a serious problem, threatening to burn away his cover. He senses his summoner is inside a nearby apartment, but the vibe of the place is dark and twisted. Inside, a woman is gasping for air, her face contorted in a silent scream for help. The shadow man appears right in front of her, observing her condition with a cold, analytical eye. He realizes she's being strangled by her own skin, a truly horrific curse meant to kill her slowly. He's never seen a spell his scythe couldn't break, so he prepares to perform some high-stakes surgery. He tells her to hold still, though the poor woman is barely conscious from the lack of oxygen. With a precise swipe, he cuts the invisible threads of the curse tight around her neck. The magic breaks, leaving jagged, glowing marks on her skin. As she finally takes a breath, she collapses, coughing violently, and pointing toward the alley outside as the source of the attack. Shadow Man catches a glimpse of someone moving in the dark and lets out a low, curious sound. In the alley, a man in a brown suit and fedora is calmly walking away, looking far too casual for a murderer. Shadowman decides to see what this guy's made of and lunges from the darkness. He reaches for the man's throat, intending to end this confrontation before it even starts. He gets his grip, but the man doesn't even flinch, standing there with an eerie, calm smile. The stranger admits he actually likes being strangled, calling it one of his kinks with a terrifying grin. He mocks the Shadow Man, calling him tall, dark, and gruesome as if they're old friends. The killer introduces himself as Mr. Twist, and as he speaks, Shadow Man's fingers begin to slip right through his neck. Shadow Man is stunned. He didn't even know demons were allowed to walk freely in the Glass City. Twist laughs at the irony, reminding the Shadow Man that he's an entity of the dead side too. He reveals that he knows exactly who Shadow Man is, claiming they both come from the same dark origin. Shadow Man decides to stop talking and rams his hand directly into Twist's head to rip out some answers. He slips into the shadows of the killer's mind, but all he finds is an ocean of traumatic memories and wicked desires. Inside Twist's psyche, Shadow Man witnesses a horrifying scene involving a woman and a secret too dark to speak aloud. Twist stares back at him with bloody eyes, telling him that they are actually in this together. The Shadow Man is shaken to his core, unable to comprehend the connection this monster is claiming. Twist promises to see him again soon, leaving the hero with 1,000 questions and no solid leads. The killer vanishes into thin air, leaving Shadow Man standing alone in a rain of tattered papers. The woman from the apartment walks into the alley, admitting she initially thought the Shadow Man was just a myth. She thanks him for saving her life. Even if the real serial killer managed to slip away, she identifies herself as a detective who's been tracking Twist for weeks, and apparently she almost became his next victim. The Shadow Man notices a golden badge on her coat and realizes she's part of the New Orleans Police Department. He confirms her identity, Detective Alyssa Miles, part of the elite Abetta division. Shadow Man realizes that since she summoned him, she must know the price the boon he requires in return. Alyssa is aware that it's usually a memory or a keepsake, but he tells her this time it'll be different. He agrees that Mr. Twist is a monster that must be stopped before he kills again. In exchange for his help, he wants the detective to use her resources to solve a very specific missing persons case. He hands her a card and asks the one question that's been haunting him. Who is Jack Boniface? Later, Alyssa reflects on her grandmother's old-school voodoo teachings about the journey of the soul. She wonders if she'll join her ancestors when she dies, or if she'll be trapped here as a restless spirit. It's 8:38 a.m. in the Blast City, and she's already standing over a fresh body at a crime scene. She arrives at the NOLA Police Department headquarters, the atmosphere tense with the weight of the investigation. Her partner, a massive werewolf in a trench coat named Saint Brown, tells her she looks like absolute trash. He brags about sleeping like a baby while she spends the night dealing with shadow entities and serial killers. Alyssa tells him to get his feet off the desk and act like a human for once. But he's not having it. She's called into the office of her superior, Captain Verdad, who tells her to take a seat immediately. She prefers to stand, noting that the captain makes her nervous, even after all these years of working together. Verdad is stressed because a second dead body in his district means the pressure is mounting from above. Alyssa reports that the victim was a 33-year-old male, strangled with the same MO as the others. The only thing that stands out is a rare scarf the victim managed to rip off his attacker before dying. The captain orders her to go to the White Zone and find out exactly who purchased that scarf. She agrees but requests to leave St. Brown behind because his fur stinks and his accent is annoying. The dad refuses, saying he trusts a wolf's nose more than her personal preferences right now. He warns her that serial killings aren't supposed to happen here, and they need to end this before the city panics. Alyssa and her partner undergo a prayer of protection ritual to safeguard them from the energy of the dead side. St. Brown thinks the whole ceremony is excessive since they're only staying in the safe White Zone. Alyssa describes the warm, fuzzy feeling of the spells purifying her soul and cleansing her sins. The wolf, however, just feels like he's walking through jelly and being judged by the universe. With the ritual complete, they prepare to dig up some worms and find their killer. It's nearly noon when they arrive at the Deadside White Zone Market, a place where everything is for sale. The wolf asks to see the scarf again, so he can get a fresh scent to track through the crowd. He takes a deep sniff, his animal instincts overriding his detective persona for a moment. He points toward a specific section of the market, confirming the scent is strongest in that direction. But he warns Alyssa that the object reeks of something much worse than death. It smells of forbidden magic. They navigate through a sea of tents and strange merchants selling fruits and trinkets of the afterlife. St. Brown spots a scarf similar to their evidence at a nearby merchant store. The merchant is a masked figure sitting on a rug, surrounded by occult items and various fabrics. Alyssa flashes her ID and introduces herself and her furry partner to the mysterious vendor. She asks about the man who bought the scarf, and surprisingly, the merchant is almost too eager to help. St. Brown is suspicious of how compliant he's being, knowing that most people in this zone hate the cops. The merchant tries to hustle them, suggesting that even a big lichen like the partner could use a blessing. He shows them a shadow scythe necklace, claiming it can be used to call upon the master of shadows himself. St. Brown scoffs, calling the Shadow Man a myth, but the merchant insists he's as real as a heartbeat. The vendor mocks the detectives for hiding behind their glass curtain and ignoring the old things that walk the earth. He tells them the Shadow Man only comes for those with nothing left but prayer and regret. He warns that every soul has to pay a boon, and it's always something precious that you can't get back. Alyssa buys a charm anyway, not because she believes in it, but just to get the merchant to start talking. The merchant reveals that the man who bought the scarf was a changeling with no real face of his own. He confirms the killer calls himself Mr. Twist and that he comes from a very dark, savage part of the dead side. Alyssa finishes her report and heads home, exhausted and skipping dinner because she's too stressed to eat. She realizes that if the suspect really is a changeling, her evidence might be completely useless. She enters her apartment building at 8:23 p.m., completely unaware that she's being watched. A sudden chill hits her as she spots a man in the hallway she's never seen before. She stops him, asking if they've met, her detective instincts finally kicking into high gear. The man tells her she doesn't know him, but she definitely knows his work in the city. He steps into the light, tipping his fedora and calling her his biggest fan. Alyssa draws her gun and warns him that she has a license for lethal magic, but her voice is trembling. Twist just laughs, calling her a fragile little doe who's caught like a deer in headlights. Suddenly, Alyssa feels a strange numbness spreading through her limbs, and her vision begins to blur. Her muscles are freezing up, making it impossible for her to pull the trigger or even move. She looks around and sees glowing yellow sigils burned into the walls. She walked right into a trap. Twist explains that he heard she was looking for him, so he decided to return the favor with a visit. He tells her it will take a few minutes for her to die, and he plans to enjoy every second of the slow burn. He claims her pathetic life is being sacrificed for a greater purpose at coming apocalypse. The killer leaves her to die, but Alyssa realizes she still has just a tiny bit of motion left in her fingers. She knows she only has one chance to survive this, and she has to take it now. She reaches into her pocket for the small shadow-sized charm she bought at the market. She whispers a desperate prayer to her grandmother, hoping the old stories were actually true. She calls out to her ancestors to hear her loudly, because today is not her day to go down. She bites down on the metal charm, the conch of the metal echoing in the silent apartment. She spits blood and the broken charm onto the floor, screaming the Shadow Man's name into the dark. The shadows in the room begin to move, and the Master of Shadows himself manifests in a storm of pink fire. He stands over Alyssa, his terrifying mask looking down at her as she gasps for air. He uses his scythe again, slicing through the air to destroy the hex that was killing her. Alyssa collapses, realizing that the boogeyman from her nightmares is actually her only savior. She can't believe her desperate gamble actually worked, and now she's staring at a legend. She tries to pull herself together, knowing she has to get back to the alley and find Twist's trail. A few moments later, she meets the Shadow Man in a quiet spot to finalize their uneasy alliance. She shows him the driver's license with Jack Boniface, wondering why this name is so important to him. She finds it interesting that he helps anyone who summons him just to ask for a favor in return. He coldly states that he is never wrong about who truly needs his intervention. Alyssa presses him for his reasons, but he isn't ready to share his personal history with a cop. He tells her his reasons are his own, his voice sounding like gravel grinding together. She agrees not to question dark shadow gods, but insists that catching the serial killer is her top priority. The Shadow Man agrees, noting that Twist is a threat that needs to be neutralized immediately. Alyssa warns him that they have to be covert, as she can't be seen working with entities from the dead side. Suddenly, Shadow Man clutches his head, feeling a cold darkness moving through his mind since he touched Twist's thoughts. Alyssa knows someone who might be able to help them understand this dark magic forensic parapathologist. They arrive at the home of Gwen and Carmen Mirage at 5014 am, the room filled with occult artifacts. Gwen is shocked to see her, admitting he honestly thought she had died in her last encounter. She jokes that she's too hard-headed to die before her next Brazilian dinner date with his wife. Gwen laughs, but his mood shifts when she asks him what he knows about the legendary Shadow Man. He calls the entity a dead folk fairy tale, but the look on Alyssa's face tells him otherwise. She drops the bomb. The Shadow Man isn't just real, he's standing right behind her. Shadow Man greets the doctor, his voice booming in the small, cramped room. Gwen lets out a geez and stumbles back, nearly knocking over a shelf of ritual tools. The Shadow Man towers over them, his presence making the very walls of the apartment feel smaller. Gwen agrees to help, but only because his unyielding scientific curiosity is getting the better of his fear. He puts on his spectral interface suit, admitting he's not sure what they're really dealing with. He instructs everyone to hold hands, initiating a binding ring to link their spiritual energies together. He reaches out to the Shadow Man, nervously calling him Sir as he initiates the connection. Their hands touch. Shadow Man notes that the doctor's skin feels unnaturally cold. The three of them stand in a circle, their combined power creating a shimmering aura of light. Wen goes silent, his eyes glazing over as the psychic scan begins to probe the Shadow Man's aura. A look of pure terror begins to crawl across the doctor's face as he sees what's inside. He lets out a faint, "Oh no," as if he's just realized they've made a terrible mistake. Wen screams no as he describes the energy as something ancient, dark, and incredibly tragic. He realizes it's not just a lingering feeling, it's an active, powerful curse. Shadow Man asks if Twist cursed him, but Wen says the origin is something much older than the killer. He looks at Alyssa with dread, revealing that the curse has spread to her as well during the ritual. He tells her that her memories have been shattered by the darkness and the damage might be permanent. Suddenly, Wen seizes up, his suit beginning to spark and glow with a violent energy. He lets out a guttural sound and begins to vomit a thick, glowing red substance onto the floor. Alyssa and Shadow Man recoil in horror, demanding to know what is happening to him. A massive, demonic, goat-like figure manifests in the shadows behind the dying doctor. Shadow Man realizes that this isn't just a side effect, it's a counter-curse meant to kill anyone who tries to help them. He tells Alyssa to stand back and swings his scythe to destroy the demonic projection. The force of the magic sends Quen flying through the air, his suit tearing under the pressure. The doctor hits the ground with a sickening thud, the light in his eyes quickly fading away. Alyssa rushes to his side, screaming his name as the room continues to shake from the magical feedback. She looks at her hands, realizing that by bringing the Shadow Man here, she might have just murdered her friend. She desperately tries to revive him, begging her ancestors not to take another soul today. But Wen isn't breathing, and as blood pours from his mouth, the Shadow Man stands over them, his scythe glowing with the blood of a friend. Bro, check this out. We start off with some super dark vibes as the narrator tells us that corpses are beautiful. It is honestly pretty chilling seeing this dead guy with that cold stillness on his face, totally frozen in time. So we cut to a crime scene where the police are crawling all over the place. Detective Miles is getting absolutely grilled by his captain, who wants to know why they were here in the first place without any backup. The captain is not buying their story for a second. He looks at Sabrina and straight up calls her out, basically saying her pants are on fire because she is lying through her teeth about a mysterious, tall stranger. Sabrina tries to keep it professional, apologizing for going against protocol and taking full responsibility for the mess. But you can tell from the look on the captain's face that an apology is nowhere near enough to fix this. Things are getting serious because the captain mentions he has to explain all of this to the Pantheon. He's worried they're no closer to catching this Mr. Twist and fears some dark magic might have rubbed off on them. And then the hammer drops. The captain tells Miles he is suspended and has to be quarantined until they can figure out if he is cursed or just incompetent. Miles is clearly frustrated, muttering a curse under his breath while the forensics team keeps taking photos of the body. His whole career is on the line, and he knows it's only going to get worse from here. Sabrina watches him leave with this incredibly creepy knowing smile behind her goggles. She thinks to herself that Miles is in for a world of pain. And honestly, it makes you wonder what her real deal is. With the forensics team distracted by the dead guy, they think they can breathe easy for a night. But then this guy Carter walks up and calls out to Sabrina, totally oblivious to the danger. Sabrina puts on her best, nervous and forgetful act to play Carter like a fiddle. She pretends she just forgot to text him back because she was so busy with work, making him feel like he's the one in control. So, Carter suggests they go grab some food, specifically gumbo from a place called Wendell's. Sabrina plays right along, smiling like she's just a normal girl on a normal date. But man, her inner monologue is straight up predator mode. She's thinking about how humans play these rudimentary games of cat and mouse, and she is clearly the cat in this scenario. She gives him this terrifyingly wide grin and tells him that the gumbo sounds delicious. You just know that gumbo isn't the only thing on the menu tonight. We see the two of them sitting in a busy restaurant, surrounded by people just living their lives. Carter is going on and on about how good the crawfish is, totally unaware that his date is a literal monster. The conversation turns to the guy who died earlier, Mirage. Carter says he was a solid dude, and it's a real loss, but he's just making small talk while Sabrina watches him with those dark goggles. They start talking about the Mr. Twist case, and Carter admits it is absolutely terrifying. He has no idea that the real nightmare is sitting right across from him sipping a drink. Sabrina looks down, playing the part of the concerned citizen, saying the whole city is unraveling. She mentions that something bigger is coming, and for a second, the mask almost slips. They head to a bar called Wild at Heart to take the edge off. Sabrina is thinking about how alcohol is just a little drop of poison that lowers inhibitions, making it so much easier for her to finish the job. By 1:16 in the morning, they are back at Sabrina's apartment. Things are getting heated, and Carter thinks he's about to have the best night of his life as he starts to undress. But then the ultimate nope moment happens. Sabrina tells him to get messy, and her entire torso splits open into a giant toothy maw that is ready to swallow him whole. Later on, Sabrina is sitting there covered in blood, looking totally drained. The human face she was wearing looks exhausted, like maintaining the illusion takes everything she has. She starts coughing up blood, but it's not even her own. It's just the messy aftermath of her midnight snack, and it is honestly disgusting to watch. She holds up a glass and pours the last of Carter into it, declaring that it is complete. She's not just eating, she's harvesting something for a much bigger purpose. We see the horrific scene of what's left of Carter on the table as she thanks him for his sacrifice. It's cold, calculated, and makes you realize these things have a very specific goal in mind. So we shift to a different location where a man in a hat is walking through a dark, hazy field. He calls out to Sister, and you can tell he is subordinate to whoever is waiting for him. He presents a glass full of blood, telling her that the dark soul is full to the brim. The Sister isn't impressed by his mortal disguise and demands to see his real face. A single candle flickers in the darkness as the Sister confirms that the sacrifice pleases her. The atmosphere is heavy with ancient malevolent magic. The man, who we now know is Grey Gaza, looks at the glass of blood and asks if he can stay in the Glass City. He wants to keep doing her glorious work, but he's basically begging for scraps. The man starts to transform, his skin peeling back to reveal a monster very similar to the one Sabrina became. He's eager to please, but he has no idea how little he actually matters to her. The Sister shuts him down immediately with a cold no. She tells him that New Orleans is compromised and he's attracted too much attention to himself already. She orders him back to the caverns where she found him, telling him to be grateful that his paltry life now has meaning. It's brutal. She just uses these monsters and tosses them aside like trash. Gregor bows his head, his stomach mouth wide open as he thanks her. Even though he's a literal nightmare, he is completely terrified of this woman. Then we see a diagram for the Dark Soul Apocalypse. There are 5 roles: the Changeling, the Saint, the Cannibal, the Assassin, and the Ripper, all revolving around the Sister. This is a recipe for the end of the world, man. A few days later, we're in the Dead Side, specifically the Black Caverns. It's a desolate, reddish wasteland that looks like it belongs in a fever dream. A lone frog hops across the rocks trying to survive in this nightmare realm. But in the Dead Side, nothing is safe for long. And then a hand snatches the frog out of the air. A voice grumbles about how boring it is here, and you can tell whoever is talking is reaching their breaking point. It's Grey Gaza, the monster from before, and he is losing it. He wonders why the Sister condemned him here, and if he is being punished for something. He sits there eating the frog, wondering if she would even notice if he just went back to the Glass City. Suddenly, the shadows behind him start to warp and twist with a purple energy. Grey Gazoo freaks out as he's suddenly pulled into a void. He screams no as he falls through this swirling vortex of shadow and magic, totally powerless. He slams into the ground, and standing over him is none other than Shadow Man. Jack is looking cool as hell in his black coat and mask, telling the monster he was hoping they could finish their little chat. The monster is stunned, asking how Shadow Man found him. He's backed into a corner, and he knows he can't win a straight fight against the Guardian of the Dead Side. Shadow Man isn't in the mood for talk. He tells the beast that he will be the one asking the questions, looming over him with pure, intimidating energy. Suddenly, purple spikes of energy erupt from the ground, skewering the monster. He screams in agony as Shadow Man uses his powers to pin him down like a bug. Shadow Man demands to know how he got into the Lost City and what the apocalypse is. The monster just laughs, telling him it is already too late to stop what's coming. The monster recognizes Detective Miles standing nearby and taunts him about being suspended. He's trying to get under their skin even while he's dying, which is super petty, honestly. He brags about how his Dark Soul is complete and how he was the first of the 5 to finish his. He explains that there are mechanisms in motion that had been spinning since before Jack was even born. Miles looks shocked, asking who else the monster is working with. The weight of the situation is finally starting to hit him. This is way bigger than one serial killer. The monster is almost proud of himself, grinning with those rows of jagged teeth. He loves the surprise he's leaving behind for them, even if he doesn't get to see it happen. He starts to expand and burst, shouting that they will bring forth illustrious glory. Suddenly, these weird, crab-like shadow creatures start erupting out of his body, and they look hungry. Shadow Man tells the detective to bleed them as the swarm of shadow crabs attacks. Jack is swinging his scythe, cutting through them like butter. But there are just so many. Miles gets knocked back, and Shadow Man tells him to focus on the monster twist. He tells Jack he can handle himself, but you can tell he's struggling against the sheer numbers of these things. So Miles decides to test a theory. He fires his gun, but it's not a normal bullet. The barrel is glowing with voodoo symbols, and it lets out a massive blast. The enchanted shot works perfectly, blowing one of the shadow monsters to bits. Miles smiles, proving that even a suspended detective can still pack a punch in the dead side. Meanwhile, one of the shadow creatures gets chomped on by a giant gator lurking in the background. It's absolute chaos as the local wildlife starts getting in on the action. The gator crushes the creature with a sickening crunch. Even in this hellscape there is a food chain, and the shadow crabs are at the bottom of it. Shadow Man finishes off Grey Gazoo with a final blast of purple energy. He tells him that a monster like him belongs where the dead will forget his name, which is a pretty cold one-liner. The monster screams one last time, begging for his sister to help him. But she isn't coming for him, and he knows he's been abandoned by the only thing he cared about. With a final flash of light, the monster is completely vaporized. Shadow Man stands there as the energy dissipates, leaving nothing but smoke and silence behind. Shadow Man tells Miles that he has banished the creature's body and soul to the Umbra. Miles is just confused, asking, the what now? Like he isn't ready for this level of cosmic weirdness. Jack explains that the Umbra is a domain within the endless shadow of his castle, where the most dangerous creatures are imprisoned. It's like a supermax prison for souls, and it sounds terrifying. Miles is impressed, telling Jack he's got to teach him that trick. He's walking with more confidence now, realizing that having Shadow Man on his side might actually save the world. But banishing Twist took a lot out of Jack. He says he needs to rest and return home, leaning on his scythe as he looks toward his massive dark castle in the distance. He looks totally drained, his eyes glowing dimly as he asks Miles for help. It's rare to see Shadow Man this vulnerable, showing just how much power that changeling was actually packing. Miles steps up to support him, asking if he's okay. They make their way to the wasteland together, an unlikely duo trying to stop the literal apocalypse. Later, inside Castle Nocturna, Shadow Man is lying on a stone slab trying to recover. Miles is standing by, watching over him while he heals up from the fight. Suddenly, a voice comes from the darkness asking if the plan worked. It's a black cat with glowing yellow eyes, and man, this cat definitely knows more than it should. Miles tells the cat that it's creepy how silent it is. He confirms that the plan worked, or rather, their plan, making it clear that this talking cat is actually a major player in their group. We get a flashback to Miles using his memory slip power. He was able to recall an image with perfect accuracy by literally reaching into his own mind to find the clue they needed. Hand sinks into his face like it's made of liquid as he pulls the information out. It's a super grotesque but cool-looking power that definitely comes with a high price. They weren't sure if they would find Twist, but they decided to investigate anyway. This flashback explains how they were able to track a monster that was literally cloaking itself from reality. Back in the present, Miles says that the ugly bastard never knew what hit him. He's feeling pretty good about the win, even though he knows the fight is far from over. The cat asks, so what now? It's the million-dollar question. One of the 5 is down, but there are still 4 more out there, each one as dangerous as the last. Miles says he has to return to New Orleans, go to Mirage's funeral, and try to get back on the force. He also needs to figure out exactly what kind of curse he's carrying around. He lists off the rest of his to-do list: start a manhunt for the other 4 killers, avert the apocalypse, and take a long nap. You know, just a typical work week for a voodoo detective. The cat, who is apparently named the Thelonious, asks Miles about his boon. He wants to know if Miles has figured out who Jack Boniface really is yet. Miles gives him a look like he's an idiot and says he deduced that the first time they met. He knows that Shadow Man is Jack Boniface, but he realizes that is only half the puzzle. We cut to somewhere else in the dead side, where a different monster is working. This guy is literally butchering people and hanging them up like meat, and he's talking about how Uncle Sammy doesn't like gamey meat. It is absolutely nauseating. The scene shifts to the bayou in the dead side. A narrator talks about hiding in the shadows where monsters keep their secrets. It's a place where ugly things crawl away from the light to hide from the truth. We see a terrifying masked man, the Bayou Cannibal, attacking a woman. He is brutal and savage, and we're seeing this through the eyes of someone who was lucky enough to hide in the shadows and survive the encounter. We're now in Shambhala, the dead city, inside the quarters of someone named Jaunty. Jaunty is sitting in a big chair, looking like a very sophisticated monkey in a top hat, asking where exactly this happened. An old woman named Jolie explains that it happened on the east side of the bayou where the cypress trees grow thick. She's terrified, holding a cup with shaking hands as she recounts the nightmare. Jaunty asks if she recognized the victim, but Jolie says she couldn't see from the shadows. All she saw was the struggle, and she knows the local folk are going to be both pissed and scared once word gets out. Jaunty suggests beefing up the protection spells on the outer perimeter, but Jolie shuts him down, telling him that won't work against a killer like this. She looks him dead in the eye and tells him the killer is a ghost. You can't catch smoke in your hands no matter how tight you squeeze. And she calls him Mr. Mayor, which is quite the reveal for a monkey. Jaunty looks out over the city, which is glowing with an eerie red light. He mutters that the whole thing is painted ugly, feeling the weight of his responsibility to protect his people from this ghost. He admits he gets a tightness in his chest and feels like he can't breathe sometimes. But then he remembers that he has a job to do and heads over to an old chest full of mystical items. He declares that until his bones run dry, he's going to do his best to protect the dead folk. He's a small guy, but he's got the heart of a lion, or at least a very brave mare. He looks at Jolie and calls her Maman Jolie de Sang. He remembers when she was the fiercest warrior priestess on this side of the bayou, making the Loa themselves tremble just by lighting a candle. Jolie just sighs and says she got old. She says the years beat down on her like rain on a stone, and fear and shame have slowly crept into her bones like rot while people died around her. She admits she got weak and scared. It's heartbreaking seeing this former legend reduced to a shadow of her former self, feeling like she failed the people she was supposed to protect. Jaunty doesn't let her wallow in it. He tells her that being old doesn't mean she is useless, and it definitely doesn't mean she is dead yet. He's trying to fire her up for one last fight. He asks her if she wants out of that rot and tosses her a small, jagged blade. It's a call to action, a chance for her to reclaim her dignity and her power. He tells her she just needs to spill a little blood. Jolie looks at the blade, and you can see the old fire starting to flicker back to life in her eyes as she prepares for a ritual. She sits in a circle of candles and skulls, preparing to call the shadow. It's a high-stakes move, and you can feel the tension as she starts the ancient chant. She cuts her hand and holds it out, letting the blood drip as she calls for the spirit to come. "Come now, Jolie," she whispers, almost like she's daring the power to return to her. She clenches her fist, and a pinkish energy starts to glow through her fingers. It's working, but it's clear this magic is painful and demanding. She shouts for it to happen, her blood mingling with the energy. She's putting everything she has left into this one ritual, desperate to make a difference. She chants Balzukoblamen as a shadowy figure starts to form behind her. The air in the room is vibrating with power, and the candles are flickering wildly. The narrator notes that she has been hiding in the shadows all this time, but now she is finally stepping back into the light, or at least the very dark magic she used to command. The shadow looms over her, massive and intimidating. She wonders what she's supposed to do when the shadow actually comes looking back at her. And honestly, I'd be wondering the same thing. Shadow Man suddenly appears in a burst of purple flame. Jolie is bowing on the floor, and Jack looks down at her, telling her she should put a bandage on her hand because she's bleeding all over the place. A few moments later, Jolie is explaining what she saw. She tells Shadow Man that she just stood there and watched as the cannibal sliced up a woman, feeling like her feet were nailed to the floor with fear. Shadow Man says he's hunted the Bayou cannibal in every corner he knows and still found nothing. It's like the guy only exists when he chooses to, making him the ultimate ghost killer. Jack is frustrated, his skull mask looking particularly grim. If we can't find this guy in the dead side, then nobody can. And that means the cannibal is free to keep killing. Jolie is overcome with guilt, covering her face as she apologizes. She feels like her cowardice cost that woman her life, and she can't live with the shame anymore. Jack remembers a night when he thought he saw the killer right in front of him. He could even smell the blood on him, but then nothing. The guy just vanished into thin air like he was never there. Jolie tells him that he saw him all right, but the guy has a very specific protection. It wasn't a hallucination. It was something much more magical and sinister. She explains that all Uncle Sammy has been blessed by the Loa of Doubt. It's a wild power that whispers disbelief directly into your mind, making you ignore what your own eyes are seeing. It's like a dream you have right before waking up. You know you had it, but the second you try to remember the details, it just slips away. This makes Sami almost impossible to track or remember. The memory just vanishes, leaving you standing there confused while the killer escapes. It's the perfect defense for a serial killer, especially in a place as chaotic as the dead side. Shadow Man realized that Sammy literally cloaks himself from reality. He's annoyed, calling him another ghost and another mystery that he has to solve before things get even worse. Jolie asks him what he means by Dark One. She's trying to understand the nature of Shadow Man himself, who is just as much a mystery to her as the killer they are hunting. Jack admits he's carrying the cursed pieces of his past. Names and faces are all gone. He feels like something out there is making sure he never sees the whole picture, keeping his own ideas right at the edge of his sight. He says that when he turns to focus, there is nothing there. He tells Jolie that he is tired of ghosts, and you can hear the weariness in his voice after fighting for so long. Jolie agrees, standing up with a new sense of purpose. She tells Shadow Man that they should feed this devil to the shadows together, and you can see that she's ready to fight. She starts preparing a ritual, taking a massive swig from a bottle of something that definitely isn't water. She needs all the liquid courage and mystical help she can get for what's coming next. We see a montage of her preparing, flicking a match, grinding herbs and drinking. The shadows around her start to transform into terrifying, multi-headed demonic shapes as the ritual takes hold. She's focused, grinding away with a mortar and pestle, while the energy in the room reaches a fever pitch. She is reclaiming her role as a warrior priestess, and it is honestly epic to see. She uses a small blade to carve symbols into a skull, her hand steady despite the danger. She's calling on every favor and every bit of knowledge she has left to trap Sammy. The blade glows with a dark purple light as the spirits of the dead seem to swirl around it. She's creating a weapon that can actually strike a ghost, which is exactly what they need. She sprinkles some enchanted powder over the glowing blade, finishing the enchantment. The room is filled with a thick, purple smoke that feels heavy with ancient power. She finishes the ritual by plunging the blade into a sacrificed goat, shouting as the energy explodes outward. She tells Shadow Man that they are ready, and she's standing there covered in blood, looking totally badass. Elsewhere, a single candle burns in the darkness. A voice says, "You're late," and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. It's Uncle Sammy, the Bayou cannibal, and he's holding a glass of blood. He explains that he had to double back and cover his tracks because so many people are looking for him. But he tells the sister not to worry. He holds up the glass like a trophy, telling her that he has it. He's finished his part of the ritual, and he is clearly enjoying the feeling of power that comes with it. He tells the sister that he's having the time of his life. He pours the blood over the candle, and the flame flares up with a dark, magical energy that illuminates his terrifying mask. He gives a wide, predatory grin, thanking her for the opportunity. He's a total psychopath who loves the killing as much as the power it brings him. We get a close-up of his eye through the mask as he repeats that he's had the time of his life. He is a man who has completely embraced his inner monster, and that makes him incredibly dangerous. Jolie tells Shadow Man that they have to be careful because Uncle Sammy will know when he is close. She says she has to head into the bayou by herself to act as the bait. So, she walks alone through the dark, murky woods, singing a song about a mother raising 3 sons. She's trying to lure him out into the open by acting like a vulnerable old woman. Shadow Man watches from a distance, his white eyes glowing. For this to work, he has to stay far enough away that Sammy's lower doubt power doesn't sense him, and warn the killer. Jolie is clutching her hidden blade, her hand wrapped in bandages. She knows that if she messes this up, she'll be totally exposed, and Sammy will cut her down before Shadow Man can even react. Jack doesn't like the plan, saying it's too dangerous, but Jolie tells him to be quiet, knowing that this is the only way to catch a ghost like Sammy. She tells him that she hid in the shadows while other folks died, and she can't run anymore. She's doing this to balance the scales, even if it costs her everything. Suddenly, Sammy appears from the trees right behind her. He's got his massive butcher knife raised, his mask looking absolutely demonic in the dim light as he prepares to strike. And then he plunges the knife into her back. Jolie screams in pain as the blood splatters everywhere, and Sammy laughs like the absolute monster he is. Sammy mocks her, asking what an old dog like her is doing lurking in the marsh. He thinks he's won, but he doesn't realize he just walked right into a trap. Jolie manages to slash him back with her enchanted blade. Sammy screams "Dead folk witch" as the purple energy from the blade starts to burn into his skin, revealing his true form. Sammy is panicked, demanding to know what the hell she cut him with. The Lower of Doubt can't hide him anymore because the blade has marked him for all to see. Shadow Man lunges from the darkness with a roar. He's moving with incredible speed, his scythe blowing as he prepares to deliver the final blow to the cannibal. Sammy is shouting "damn it" as the shadows around him start to break apart. His protection is gone, and he's finally facing the true guardian of the dead side head on. Jolie is on the ground, frantically using her enchanted powder to keep the shadows from slipping out of her mind. She's fighting to keep her focus, even as she's bleeding out from the stab wound. Sammy lunges at her, shouting "gotcha" as he tries to finish her off. He's like a cornered animal now, lashed out at anything he can reach. But his attack fails, as the energy from Jolie's ritual flares up again. He looks stunned, wondering what kind of magic is holding him in place. Sammy screams that this won't hold me as the blue entity starts to wrap around his body. He's struggling with all his might, but the power of the ritual is too strong for him to break. Jolie is coughing up blood, but she still manages to taunt him. She asks if his body feels heavy all of a sudden, like he's neck-deep in mud, which is a classic symptom of being magically restrained. She explains that the ritual used Papa Ledber's Vev, which holds the keys to the crossroads. Tonight, every path is shut except for one, and Sami is stuck right where he stands. Shadow Man looms over him, his scythe raised high. The trap is completely sprung, and there is nowhere left for the Bayou cannibal to run. With a massive swing, Shadow Man strikes Sami down. The purple energy explodes on impact, and the cannibal lets out one final soul-shattering scream as his body begins to disintegrate. Shadow Man tells him that the Umbra beckons, marking the end of the cannibal's reign of terror. It's a powerful moment of justice, but it came at a very high price for Jolie. He fades away. Sami is still in shock, asking how Jack could even see him. He can't believe that an old woman and a cursed man were able to outsmart him. Jolie watches from the ground, telling him that shadows can't hide him anymore, because the Bayou itself has judged him. She is exhausted and dying, but she finally got her revenge. She tells him the fire is going to claim him now as the last of his form is swallowed by the purple magic. The cannibal is gone, and the Bayou is finally a little bit safer. Sammy screams one last no as he is completely pulled into the Umbra. The energy is intense, tearing him apart atom by atom until there is nothing left of the monster. The energy fizzles out, leaving Shadow Man standing alone in the clearing. The fight is over, and the second of the five has been dealt with, but the cost is starting to mount. Jolie tells him that it's finished now, her voice weak and trembling. She's lying in a pool of her own blood, and you can see that she doesn't have much time left in this world. She lets out a series of hacking coughs, her body finally giving out after the intense strain of the ritual. She's dying, but she's dying with her honor restored. Shadow Man rushes to her side, telling her she is hurt badly. He holds her face, and for a moment, you see the human side of Jack Boniface shine through the mask. Jolie asks him if she stood her ground and if she was powerful. She wants to know if they showed him, desperate for validation that her sacrifice actually meant something. Jack tells her, yes, we did. You did. He's giving her the peace she needs, confirming that she was a warrior priestess until the very end. She coughs again, saying she isn't going to make it and apologizing because she can't pay his boon. She feels like she's leaving him with an unfinished debt, which is so like her character. Shadow Man looks down, silent for a moment. He's thinking of a way to save her, or at least a way to keep her around so she doesn't have to face the void just yet. He tells her there is another way for her to pay his boon and keep walking in this world. It's a cryptic offer, and you just know it's going to come with some serious consequences. He tells her that she can exist in between worlds, as a shadow. It's not exactly life, but it's not death either. It's a third option that only someone with Jack's power could offer. Jolie doesn't even hesitate. She just says, do it. She's ready to keep fighting, even if it means losing her humanity entirely and becoming a creature of the night. Shadow Man warns her that he's never done this to a person before, only animals like bobcats and gators. He tells her she'd be tied to eternity as a ghost, cursed to see the world only from the dark. She tells him to do it before she dies, her eyes looking up at him with one final plea. She'd rather be a shadow than nothing at all, and she wants to stay by his side. Shadow Man says, very well, and raises his hands, channeling a massive amount of purple energy. He's literally rewriting her soul, turning a dying woman into something entirely new. Her face is illuminated in a burst of energy as she begins the transformation. She thinks about how she used to think the shadows made her small and hid her fears, but now everything is changing. Shadow Man looks down at his hand, realizing the weight of what he's just done. He's created a partner, but he's also tied another soul to his own dark destiny. We see Jolie's new form as a shadowy figure beside Jack. She says that now the darkness is where she stands proudly, ready for the next fight in a werewolf's reckoning. Man, things are just getting started. So we open up in the tribunal hall of the Glass City, New Orleans, where the vibe is heavy and the stakes are even higher. Hide-back chairs surround a glowing seal, holding the fates of everyone in the room. The Grand Pantheon Tribunal is officially in session, and they aren't playing around today. Detective Alyssa Miles is on the chopping block, accused of being reckless in the death of Dr. Wayne Mirage. First up is the Honorable John Warlock, looking smug with that white streak in his hair. He's the kind of guy who knows exactly how much power he holds over a person's life. Then you've got the great Baba Vitra, who looks like he's seen 1,000 years of bad news and enjoyed every second of it. His face is covered in markings that probably mean nothing good for the accused. Beside him is Amanai Nambi, the seer of souls, watching with eyes that seem to look straight through your skin. She doesn't need evidence when she can just read your spirit. The majestic Moira Redhand is here too, her face glowing with blue runes that hum with ancient power. She looks like the most reasonable one here, but in this room, reasonable is a relative term. Check out Barak the Ashen, who literally has a skull embedded in his forehead and a necklace made of them. He's the mystical one, which in this city just means he's the one you definitely don't want to owe a favor. Then there's our sweet sister Seraphine, looking all holy but carrying an aura that's anything but peaceful. She's watching the proceedings like a hawk waiting for someone to trip up. Onsok of the White Fan sits in the shadows, his eyes hidden behind a wide-brimmed hat. He's holding a fan covered in mystical eyes, because apparently one pair isn't enough for this guy. Finally, we have Captain Dox Vedat of the Abeto Division, the man who actually has to deal with the mess these people talk about. He looks exhausted, probably because his best officers are currently being roasted by a council of wizards. Baba Vitra starts laying into Alyssa, calling her out for failing to contain the entity known as Mr. Twist. He thinks she's just a reckless girl playing with rituals she doesn't understand. Alyssa just gives him a dry, "Nice to meet you too," because she's awesome like that. She knows she's in trouble, but she's not gonna let these fossils intimidate her. John Warlock pipes up, reminding everyone that they shouldn't forget about the werewolf on the force. He's talking about Detective St. Brown, whose nose is the only reason he's allowed in the building. Seraphine isn't having any of it, claiming this tribunal spends way too much time on pity. She wants Alyssa stripped of her badge immediately, regardless of what the captain thinks. Moira Redhand shuts that down, arguing that standing toe-to-toe with a monster like Mr. Twist and showing up for work the next day takes real guts. That's Alyssa in a nutshell. Pure courage. And then St. Brown speaks up, sounding more like a man than the beast everyone sees him as. He tells the tribunal plainly that if they want to blame someone, they should start with him, not his partner. Amanji Nambi backs him up, saying that in her land, they don't shame courage, they honor it. It's a rare moment of support in a room that usually only deals in judgment. Alyssa tries to explain that she was closing in on Twist when he targeted her, and now he's vanished or maybe even dead. But without proof, her words are just floating in the air. Seraphine keeps pushing, calling Alyssa unfit and demanding she be removed for the safety of the city. She's like that one teacher who refuses to give you partial credit even when you get the hard part right. But Barrett the Ashen intervenes, suggesting that while she might be guilty, she isn't beyond repair. He sees a use for her skills that the others are too blind to notice. So, after a whole lot of arguing and mystical posturing, the votes are finally tallied. The room goes quiet as the Grand Pantheon prepares to deliver the final verdict. And then the hammer drops. Alyssa is reinstated with her license to use magic fully restored. It's a huge win, but you can tell the tension in the room hasn't actually gone away. John Warlock gives her a parting shot, hoping she'll do better against the next serial killer. He's such a pretentious prick, but Alyssa is too busy breathing a sigh of relief to care. Meanwhile, in the shadows outside the hall, a demon is waiting in the dark. A figure in a black tactical suit watches the duo leave, ready to pounce the moment the time is right. The mystery deepens as we see the ninja's eyes through the mask, focused and deadly. Who sent her, and why is she tracking a werewolf and a disgraced detective? Later that night, we head over to St. Brown's flat, where the wolf is looking anything but heroic. He's staring at a small curved blade, sighing because he knows what he's about to do is forbidden. He starts the ritual, whispering the name Bosu Kablamin into the dark. He's desperate, reaching out to the one being in New Orleans who might be able to help him with his secret burn. But something goes wrong with the summoning, or maybe it goes exactly right in the worst way. His hands start to glow with a strange pink energy that he definitely wasn't expecting. The wolf is stunned, wondering if this is actually how forbidden magic is supposed to work. He thought he was summoning the Shadow Man, but the energy feels different. And then a silhouette appears in the center of the room, tall and commanding. A voice mocks him, saying, "Ain't you a big boy?" As a new player enters the game, St. Brown demands to know who she is, and man does she have an answer. She introduces herself as Maman Jolie Evangeline Du Sang, the Shadow Queen of the Dead Folk. She tells him to mind his tone, explaining that he performed a crude little summoning with a stolen relic. She's the priestess of blades and bone, and she doesn't take kindly to being called as a backup. St. Brown tries to play it cool, but he's clearly out of his league here. He admits he found the scythe in the evidence locker, and figured since he was already breaking rules, why not go all the way? Maman Jolie isn't impressed by his rebel act, telling him that the Dark One is busy. She's here to screen his calls, and if he wants to talk to the big boss, he has to prove himself to her first. She leans in, her shadow face hovering near his, and asks the big question. "What is it you want, Wolfchild? What is your story?" So St. Brown starts from the beginning, taking us back years ago to the Yorkshire moors in northern England. It was a beautiful summer night, or at least it started that way. He tells her about the blood moon that changed everything for his family. His mum loved her night walks because she said the air kept her young, but the moors held a dark secret. They thought they were safe in the open fields, but the night howler found them. It's a tragic scene, showing a young boy watching his world get torn apart in an instant. The beast tore his mother to pieces before he could even scream for help. And then the monster turned its yellow eyes toward him, and the nightmare truly began. The werewolf ripped into his body something awful, leaving scars that would never heal. He lived where his mother didn't, but the survival came with a terrible price. Father Aziza was a mage from Benin who knew a lot about curses, but even his magic had limits. That night Aziza broke twice, once for his wife, and once for what his son was becoming. The blood wound sealed a curse so deep that no priest or spell could undo it. Ali was destined to slowly and permanently transform into a beast, a process that couldn't be stopped. After the Peace-Iot Wars, England turned on anyone with mystic ties, branding them as dangerous. The only place left that would welcome people like them was New Orleans, the Glass City. They boarded a ship for America, looking for a fresh start where they wouldn't be hunted. But a new city doesn't mean the old demons go away. They just find new places to hide. On that boat, Ali first noticed his father's sickness, a weakness that Aziza tried his best to hide. The man was literally giving his life force away to keep his son stable. The ship was full of mystic folk, all seeking a world where they could practice their magic without being persecuted. It was a floating sanctuary of the weird and the wonderful. A punk rock girl with horns and pink hair checks in on them, asking if the old man is going to be all right. Even among the outcast, there's a sense of community and concern. Ali tells her his dad just needs rest, but he knows the truth is much darker. He's watching his father wither away, while he himself grows stronger and more animalistic. The girl offers them some soup, saying it'll warm their guts, and Ali is touched by the kindness of a stranger. It's a small moment of humanity in a journey defined by tragedy. She asks what the plan is when they hit the Glass City, and Ali says his dad is a lawyer who wants to keep working. As for Ali, he just wants something steady, maybe in security. The girl laughs, calling security Not very punk rock, because magic is supposed to be about chaos, not order. She wants to start a band and make a mess of the whole city. She calls herself a Mombo and tells Ali that if she were him, she wouldn't hide who she is. But Ali can't afford to be open. He's a walking time bomb of fur and teeth. He finally arrives at the Glass City, a sprawling metropolis of steel and shadow. It's beautiful and terrifying all at once, the perfect place for a werewolf and a dying mage to disappear. Aziza is coughing badly as they step onto the pier, but he tries to smile for his son. "We made it, Papa," Ali says, but the victory feels hollow with his father so ill. Ali got older, the curse grew, and so did the hunger for raw, bloody meat. They were emptying out the local butchers every week just to keep the beast inside him quiet. He expected heightened senses, but what he got was something far more intense and supernatural. He could smell things that weren't physical, like sickness and even the stench of a lie. He realized that if he was going to survive this, he had to stop fighting it and start embracing it. He had to become the beast everyone was so afraid of. The transformation was terrifying, turning him into a hybrid of man and wolf that didn't belong in either world. He was a monster, but he was a monster with a conscience. But as Ali embraced his power, his father's sickness only got worse, the coughing becoming constant. The curse was like a parasite, and it was feeding on the only person Ali had left. They had him evaluated by a dozen doctors, but the truth they eventually uncovered was devastating. The Night Howler wasn't just a wolf. It was from an ancient predatory line of Lycan. Being bitten under a blood moon meant the curse burned hotter and stronger than a normal werewolf's. It was so powerful that it spilled into his bloodline, draining the life from anyone genetically bound to him. Aziza tells him it's all right and that it's not his fault, but how do you live with that? The very thing that made Ali a monster was literally killing his father. Aziza promises to carry the burden with him because that's what fathers do, which is just heartbreaking. He's choosing to die so that his son can live, even if that life is a curse. Ollie needed a purpose to keep himself from going off the deep end, so he joined the Abettors. It was a place where his sickness could actually be turned into a tool for justice. Captain Verdad saw the potential in Ali's curse, using him to sniff out things no human ever could. He was the secret weapon of the police department, a hound for the supernatural. He could tell when money was foul and marked with a spell, warning the other officers to stay away. He was doing good work, but he still felt like an outsider in his own skin. And then he met Detective Elisa Miles, who was just as much of an outcast as he was. She walked up to him while he was in his wolf form and didn't even flinch, which was a first. They became partners, a werewolf and a mage detective, taking on the darkest corners of the city. They were a perfect match, two people who understood what it meant to carry a heavy burden. Alyssa and Bradad were tough on him, sure, but they were the first people who made him feel welcome. For the first time in years, the monster felt like he was actually human again. So that brings us back to now, and the reason Ali called for the Shadow Man. His father is dying, and Ali is desperate for just one thing that magic might be able to provide. He just wants a bit of time with his dad as a man, not as a beast. He wants to say goodbye with a human voice and look into his father's eyes without the yellow tint of a monster. He pleads with Mom and Jolie, asking if she will help him, her shadow eyes reflecting his desperation. It's a gamble, but it's the only shot he has left to make things right. Meanwhile, way over in the Deadside's twisted forest, the actual Shadow Man is busy with his own problems. He's hacking and slashing through a horde of monsters that look like they're made of nightmares. The forest is a chaotic mess of pink energy and screeching creatures, and Shadow Man is right in the center of it. He's a force of nature, but even a force of nature gets tired eventually. He's breathing hard, leaning on his side as the bodies of fallen demons pile up around him. The dead side is relentless, and it's clearly starting to wear on the hero's resolve. Own Shadow, a being he calls Shade, detaches from him and starts talking. It's like he's having a conversation with his own soul, and neither of them is particularly happy right now. Shadow Man tells Shade to hold the line, because he apparently needs to go help a werewolf. He's felt the pull of the summoning, And despite the chaos here, he can't ignore a cry for help. He tells Shade not to let the Horde reach Shambhala, which sounds like a pretty big deal. If those things get through, the dead side won't be the only place in trouble. The Shadow Man has had to fight the darkness inside him his entire life, and now he's fighting it literally. He's a man caught between two worlds, much like the werewolf who just called his name. He vanishes from the dead side in a swirl of energy, leaving Sade to deal with the remaining monsters. It's a risky move, but the Shadow Man has always been one to follow his gut over the rules. Back in the Glass City, on the same night, the city's skyline looks peaceful, but the air is thick with grief. Inside a small apartment, Aziza's fight is slowly slipping away as his body finally gives up. Ali hears his father coughing from the other room, and it's a sound that cuts deeper than any claw. He stands in the doorway, his wolf frame looking too big for the small, quiet space. He whispers "Papa" as he walks toward the bed, fearing that he might already be too late. The room is filled with the smell of medicine and fading magic, a scent he's come to hate. And then a figure steps out of the shadows, and Ali knows exactly who it is. The Shadow Man has arrived, his skull mask glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. Ali stares at the legendary hero, stunned that his desperate ritual actually worked. The Shadow Man is real, and he's standing right in front of him in his father's bedroom. Ali begs him to save his father, to destroy the curse that's making him sick. He's willing to do anything, to pay any price, just to keep the old man alive for a little while longer. Shadow Man sighs, telling him that while he could disrupt a spell, a curse is a completely different matter. He knows the weight of a curse better than anyone, and he's not gonna lie to the kid. He explains that his size could cut through the father's curse, but only while the blade stays inside him. The second he pulls it free, the darkness will rush back in and finish what it started. Ali doesn't care about the long term anymore. He just wants to be a man long enough to say goodbye properly. He wants to feel his father's hand without worrying about the claws he's hiding. Shadow Man warns him that magic like this demands a price, a boon, something precious. But Ali doesn't hesitate for even a second before saying, "I accept." Shadow Man reaches out his hand, and a cold energy like midnight slipping into a skull begins to flow. It's a painful, invasive sensation that makes Ali's vision swim with dark images of the past. He sees his family's last supper together before the blood moon rose and ruined everything. It was a simple meal, but now it feels like the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. He sees the beast tearing it all apart again, but this time he's pleading for it to stop. "No, not this one, please," he cries out in his mind, but the magic is relentless. He begs the magic to take anything else, just not the memory of the last time they were all happy. But the Shadow Man's power is a surgical strike, and it doesn't leave anything behind but the result. The Shadow Man leaves him with nothing, not even the memory of what he lost to get this moment. It's a brutal trade, the kind of bargain that only makes sense when you're desperate. Ali opens his eyes and he's human again, his voice cracking as he calls out, "Papa." He's shaking, his body feeling small and vulnerable without the wolf's strength. Aziza looks up, his eyes widening as he sees his Ali boy standing there as a man. It's a miracle he never expected to see again, a final gift before the end. Ali tries to apologize, saying it's all his fault, but his dad won't hear a word of it. He's just happy to see his son's face one last time, to hold a human hand in his own. Ali is crying now, the weight of everything finally hitting him without the monster's armor. He tells his dad it's just him now, his son, and for a moment the curse is gone. The Shadow Man stands in the background, his scythe glowing with that ominous pink light as he watches. He's the monster that made this moment possible, the dark guardian of the Glass City. Aziza tells him that Sylvia, his mother, would have loved to see how he's grown into a good man. It's the ultimate validation, a father telling his son that he's proud of him despite everything. He cracks a joke about all the fur Ali shed on his carpet and the butcher's bills, trying to lighten the mood. They laugh together, a real human laugh that fills the room and pushes back the shadows. But the light is fading, and both of them know it as they hold on to each other in the quiet room. "Oh, Ali boy," Aziza whispers, his voice barely more than a breath now. He tells Ali that it doesn't matter if he's a wolf or a man because he'll always be my son. It's the perfect ending to a story defined by a father's love and a son's sacrifice. They stay like that as the title, "What Fathers Do," appears on the screen, a final tribute to Aziza. It's a heavy moment that makes you realize just how much these characters have truly lost. But the story isn't over yet, as we see the ninja figure again, cleaning her blades in the dark. Mercy has a price, and as the Shadow Man heads back into battle, you have to wonder who's going to pay it next.